Let's pretend that a man, with a little help from science, could psychically project himself inside the dream of a sleeping person.
Okay, let's pretend that.
Dreamscape is a dark science fiction adventure horror film which was released in the States on the 15th of August 1984, but was released as late as 1988 in some areas internationally. With a budget of $6 million, it was a reasonable box office success, taking $12.1 million worldwide. This was also the second film released in movie theatres that was rated PG-13, under the new Motion Picture Association of American Ratings guidelines, following Red Dawn, which had come out 5 days prior. Directed by Joseph Ruben, who would later go on to direct such movies as Sleeping with the Enemy and The Good Son, and was produced by Bruce Cohn-Curtis by his independent company Cohn-Curtis Enterprises. Whilst the movie was distributed by 20th Century Fox, Dreamscape was a big departure for the producer, who had produced low-budget fare. The story was written by David Lowery. The treatment was written whilst Lowery was struggling to sleep due to being unemployed at the time, and was inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's 1945 movie Spellbind. This was one of 3 movies to come out within a year of each other dealing with dream manipulation and its potential consequences. The other 2 were Brainstorm, released a year earlier in 1983, and of course A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Dreamscape and the Elm Street series share very similar plot elements, particularly the killer using the victim's dreams to kill them in reality. The script was sold to 20th Century Fox, but was deemed too expensive to make with a forecasted budget of $12 million. The script languished on the shelf for a year before producer Bruce Cohn-Curtis bought the script after producer Chuck Russell felt it was the right project for Cohn-Curtis Enterprises. Joe Ruben, who had already directed the low-budgeted movie Joyride for Bruce Cohn-Curtis, said to work to co-write with producer Chuck Russell. They brought David Lowery back on board to fine-tune the screenplay, changing Lowery's original setting of New York and changing the storyline of the Rat Man to the now infamous Snake Man. Producer Chuck Russell placed his own love of Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon into the story, went on to become screenwriter and director for the aforementioned A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, which was released 3 months later. He also directed the remake of the 50s classic The Blob. According to author Roger Lazanzi, he claims the script was developed from an initial outline that he wrote in 1981, based in part upon his novella He Who Shapes, and the 1966 novel The Dream Master. He was not involved in the project after 20th Century Fox bought his outline. Claims that he removed his name from the credits are, however, unfounded, because he did not write the film's script. It was also reported that writer Margot Driver sued producer Bruce Cohn-Curtis and Cohn-Curtis Enterprises for $1 million in damages, alleging Dreamscape was based on a 1979 story she wrote called Lady in White. Bruce Cohn-Curtis wanted some gravitas to the movie, so he assembled a host of some of the industry's best, including Oscar winner Maurice Jarre, famous for his stunning soundtrack on movies such as Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. Cinematographer Brian Tufano, who had worked on Quadrophenia, used various methods to achieve the dream sequences, netting in the love scene and an over-wide 14mm wide lens for the dream involving the infidelities. Oscar-winning Rocky editor Richard Halsey was also recruited, as well as Craig Reardon, who was tasked with the makeup and creature effects, who later went on to work on Weird Science and The Goonies. Dennis Quaid stars as Alex Gardner. He was the first and only choice for Alex after the producers loved his dedication for the role and the project during its pre-production stage. This was Quaid's first leading role after starring in the renowned Jaws 3D. He would go on to appear in other 80s cult movies like Enemy Mine and Inner Space. The late Max von Sydow stars as Paul Novotny. Max is probably best known for his work on The Exorcist and 1980s Flash Gordon as Ming. He went on to star in David Lynch's Dune, also released in 1984. Oscar-winning acting legend Christopher Plummer stars as Bob Blair, who was named after a character in Serpico. Christopher is probably best known for his work in The Sound of Music, but of course has ventured into sci-fi movies like the cult classic Star Crash and playing General Chang in 1991's Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. David Patrick Kelly stars as Tommy Ray Glattman, chosen after he was spotted in the classic The Warriors, and also in 48 Hours. David Lowery said Glattman's name was inspired from a real-life serial killer, and as Kelly was a method actor, would remain in character on set. David trained hard to learn the choreography with the nunchucks and helped design the props, giving them their unique look. Kevin Costner was offered the role of Tommy Ray but turned it down because he did not want to play a supporting role. Kate Capshaw plays Dr. Jane DeFries. Jane was the first choice for this role. The producers had hoped to benefit from Capshaw's appearance in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, released earlier on the 23rd of May 1984, even changing Dreamscape's release date from May the 11th 1984 to August, to allow distributor 20th Century Fox to mount a sufficient promotional campaign. Jane became the wife of Steven Spielberg and went on to have a limited career, starring later in Black Rain. George went as a small role as Charles Prince. The character he played is a fairly transparent caricature of real-life horror writer Stephen King. George will be best known for his character as Norm in the hit comedy Cheers. Eddie Albert plays the President, plagued with nightmares, best known for his TV roles in Green Acres and movies like The Longest Yard and Disney's Escape from Witch Mountain. For the plot, we follow Alex Gardner, a psychic who has been using his talents solely for personal gain, which mainly consists of gambling and womanizing. When he was 19 years old, Alex had been the prime subject of a scientific research project documenting his psychic abilities, but in the midst of the study he disappeared. Alex is reunited years later with his former mentor, Dr. Paul Novotny, who is now involved in the government-funded psychic research. Novotny, aided by his fellow scientist Jane DeFries, has developed a technique that allows psychics to voluntarily link with the minds of others by projecting themselves into the subconscious during REM sleep. Novotny equates the original idea for the Dreamscape project was a practice of the Senai natives of Malaysia, who believe the dream world is just as real as reality. The project was intended for clinical use to diagnose and treat sleep disorders, particularly nightmares, but it has been hijacked by Bob Blair, a powerful government agent. Novotny convinces Alex to join the program and gains experience with the technique by helping a man who was worried about his wife's infidelity and by treating a young boy named Buddy, who was plagued with nightmares so terrible that the previous psychic lost his sanity trying to help him. Buddy's nightmares involve a large, sinister snake man. With the help of novelist Charles Prince, who has been covertly investigating the project for a new book, Alex learns that Bob Blair intends to use the dream linking technique for assassination. Blair assigns Tommy Ray Glattman, a mentally unstable psychic who murdered his own father, to enter the president's dream and assassinate him. People who die in their dreams also die in the real world. Blair considers the president's nightmares about nuclear holocaust as a sign of political weakness.
So, the old wives' tale comes true after all. When you dream that you die in life. The very same instant. Now we can go into an enemy's dream, kill him, make it look as if he died in his sleep. Do you realize what that means?
It means no one's safe from you.
Filming for Dreamscape began on the 3rd of February 1983 on location in Los Angeles, taking place at the racetrack in Los Alamitos and at the University of the Pacific in Stockton, which doubles as Thornhill College. The first dream sequence on top of the building was filmed on a bank that was the highest building in LA at the time and was filmed on split level, using similar techniques to the effects that were used in Harold Lloyd's movies to give a sense of danger. Bronson Caves, seen previously in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, were used for the final battle in the President's Dream, with Tommy Ray as the Snake Man. The music is scored by French composer Maurice Jarre. Originally, the producers wanted Jarre to write the music for the film orchestrally, but Jarre insisted on scoring the film electronically because he felt it was the right approach for the material and also sets the tone for the film. This is one of Dreamscape's strengths and unfortunate weaknesses, as it's not aged well, but its strengths do add to the dreams and the dream tunnels. Special effects were by Peter Curran, who had worked on Return of the Jedi and later on movies like RoboCop. The budget was very small, however. The dream sequences miniatures were handled by Susan Turner, who used ready-made models of Washington to create the post-nuclear landscape due to the tight budget, all used without a motion control camera where everything was done by hand. Using an optical printer to combine all the elements, also uses some effective matte paintings to enhance the devastated Washington sets. These were created by Rocco Godfrey of Dream Quest Images, who created for more than 100 films, including Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1977. Whilst the Snake Man and other makeup effects were handled by Craig Reardon, who created and tested a full Snake Man costume with renowned voice artist Larry Sydow donning the costume, but the producers felt they wanted to add stop motion as Tess looked a little hammy. This was created by James Appley, who had been working on Jason of Star Command. Dreamscape was cut for UK cinemas upon its original release in 1984, and with video issues. The scene on the train where Alex meets Tommy Ray is shorter as it features the infamous nunchuckers, which rarely made it onto the British screens at the time. and the shots of a man's severed heart were also removed by UK censors. This scene can be seen in the TV version which was shown on BBC One, albeit minus a few strong words, when the BBFC reclassified the film in 2000, following a weapons rethink in 1999.
You guys like Bruce Lee movies? I saw Enter the Dragon 6 times. You blew it, Alex. While you were fooling around with Novotny, I was learning how to take advantage in here. In this world, you're nothing, Alex. And me, I'm God.
I first watched Dreamscape on VHS upon its release, and it's one of those movies that stayed with me in the back of my memory. It's one I remember being shown fairly regularly on British TV, maybe on a late night slot, but it kind of disappeared into obscurity. The film was marketed as an adventure movie, even the movie poster by artist Drew Struzan, the same artist who created the poster for Indiana Jones, also created the poster for Blade Runner and Back to the Future. Because of this, you can forgive me for thinking the film was produced by Steven Spielberg, given his future wife's involvement. The movie suffered slightly at the box office because of how it was marketed as an adventure movie, especially with the poster, although the Italian movie poster is something else to behold. I often got Dreamscape confused as a kid with 1983's Brainstorm, as it dealt with similar themes of the scientists battling with government corruption, which in turn I confused for The Dead Zone, which also starred Christopher Walken. I have a real fondness for this movie, like many of the movies I review. Sure, it's aged badly in areas, but I love the dream sequences, and everyone remembers the Snake Man. And despite the low budget, I think the special effects are quite effective, especially the blue screen work during the trolley ride, although I'm sure the legendary Ray Harryhausen would spin in his grave at some of the stop motion work. Dreamscape is a 70s government conspiracy movie given an 80s gloss coating. The story plays like a combination of Inception and Elm Street. On one side we have a government program that allows people to enter a subject's dreams and interact with them, possessing the ability to alter the dream world if necessary. In Dreamscape's case though, it's less to steal or implant ideas into their minds, but more so to understand what the dreams are trying to tell the subject and help them overcome the issues caused by them. For instance, a man with huge feelings of inadequacy dreams that literally everyone and anyone is sleeping with his wife. On the other side, we have the inevitable abuses that would arise from such a technology, a shadowy division of the US government, who wants to use the technology to train an army of dream-based assassins. Dreamscape has a 77% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes from 31 critics. The consensus is Dreamscape mixes several genres: horror, sci-fi, action, and always maintains a sense of adventure and humour. The film is also ranked 93 on the site's 100 best reviewed sci-fi movies. The only real area where I believe the film really drops the ball is it needed more dream sequences. The final dream with modern viewing feels way too short. By the time Alex starts to utilise the dream world, it's all over. And of course the music department, with Maurice Jarre's score, which in more bombastic scenes feels like he's trying to hit you over the head with a synthesizer. It needed softening with some orchestral scoring. It's not awful. Jarre did combine these more successfully in his next movie, Enemy Mine, the following year in 1985. There are, however, great performances, especially from Quaid on fine form, channeling Harrison Ford with a Jack Nicholson smile. Plummer and Sydow chew the scenery, and despite Dreamscape's fantastical plot, their performances sells the possibility that the Dreamscape project is believable. Capshaw and Quaid have real chemistry, with the creative fun and often generally scary nightmare sequences that, despite their misgivings and low budget, the special effects often still pack a punch. The film ends with Jane and Alex boarding a train intent on making their previous dream encounters a reality. They are surprised to meet the ticket collector from Jane's dream, giving the movie an ambiguous ending. Dreamscape's legacy can be seen of course in Inception, but also in movies like 2000's The Cell 2. It's a hugely entertaining slice of underrated 80s sci-fi horror adventure. The film was released on DVD on June 6, 2000, in January 4, 2005, and in April 7, 2015, and now is available on Blu-ray and on the Prime Video Shout TV channel. Check it out, it's definitely due for a cult revival.
How did you get in here?
It was easy.
If you like my content and you wish to subscribe to the channel, please click the button below and don't forget to hit the bell notification. You can also follow my channel on the usual Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Links are in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up and drop me a comment on your views on Dreamscape. And until the next time, thanks for listening and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot. Take care.